people moving into this region. You don't see the same level of spectacular growth in Western Washington County, which is, Farmington, Prairie Grove, Lincoln, West Fork, and Greenwood, so several of the smaller cities. And then you look at this chart, which is, again, several of the other smaller cities, and I think of particular interest to you guys in Springdale would be Tawnytown, which you saw a tremendous increase in the number of homes sold. That's, once they resolved several of the issues that they had, you saw a lot of permits for new subdivisions in Tawnytown. And eventually those subdivisions got built up, and they're getting to be full. So you're seeing this downturn in the number of homes sold. It's because they're running out of homes to sell, so to speak, in Tawnytown. So that was about a 12% decrease from a year ago, which is not what you've seen in the other cities. And as I mentioned, if you see the number of homes sold rising rapidly, the inventory going down rapidly, you would expect home prices to go up. Benton County's average home price is now $293,000. Washington County's average home price is now $270,000. Both were up about 11 to 12% in a year, and are up about 43% over 5 years. Now, over the past 5 years, before even the second half of 2020 happened, and you saw this spectacular price increase, prices in Washington and Benton County were going up about 5, 6, 7% each year, which in and of itself was sustainable. But now we're looking at double-digit increase in average prices, 11 and 12% in Benton and Washington County. So that's a lot higher, and it's certainly not where we want to see it, and it's certainly not what we want to see happening with home prices in this region. Madison County average home price is now $208,000, and that was also about 18% increase in the last year, and over the last 5 years has been a 50% increase in Madison County as well. And as we'll see here in the next few slides, after looking at prices in specific cities, we'll talk about why this home price increase is happening. So again, bigger cities in Washington County, again in Springdale, the average home price is $242,000. A 5-year increase has been fairly significant. And in Fayetteville, that average home price is $274,000. Again, average home price increase over 5 years has been really significant. You will note here that in Springdale, this line was sort of flattening a little bit until the second half of 2020 when demand just skyrocketed. And you'll see in Fayetteville that line was trending down for a while before, again, second half of 2020, demand skyrocketed, pushing prices up. And that's in part, a bigger reason in Fayetteville as much as it is in Springdale was that homes were starting to be built smaller, so the average square footage was going down, which contributed to overall decreases in the home prices. So in terms of a sort of preview of what I'll maybe be talking about here in a little bit, is one way the region has addressed higher home prices is by building smaller homes. So we're talking about more density in residential lots. And that had a more significant impact in Fayetteville because Fayetteville did a lot more, approved a lot more denser subdivisions. And in particular in Fayetteville, the average square footage of a house went down by about one whole room. So that pushed the overall price of homes down. And we saw a similar effect in Springdale, where you saw a little more density, not as much as Fayetteville, and again, homes being built a little bit smaller, and that had an effect on pushing home prices down. And obviously, none of that kept up with what happened in the second half of 2020 with the demand for homes skyrocketing, so which is why you see that trend ended very quickly in both Fayetteville and Springdale. Again, looking at the smaller cities with larger homes across the rest of Washington County. Again, you're looking at fairly expensive homes, but these are larger homes on larger lots. And when we talk about, residential single family, and we always talk about affordability, affordability means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Try to come up with a sort of simple rubric to look at to measure affordability. And the one thing that I look at is median multiple. It's crude, but it's fairly simple to calculate and keep going. And the median multiple is simply the median home price divided by median household income. And if that number is around 2.5, that's generally considered an affordable market. And if you just think about the logic of that, is that the median household is spending 2.5 times their household income to purchase a house. That seems reasonable. But as you can see from that line here in Washington County, that number is about 4.5. So then that means that the median household in Washington County is spending 4.5 times their annual household income to buy a house. In the city of Springdale, the median household income is about $48,000. Median home price is about $225,000. So the median multiple is 4.6. Fayetteville, that median multiple is 4.5. So again, when you look at this sort of crude metric, but it allows you to kind of estimate for the entire market at once, without looking at each individual person's individual finances, you can get this idea that by and large the market is unaffordable to the median household in both the city and in the county as well. So that's something to keep in mind. Obviously, there are other measures that we have been looking at as a region, and one of those is housing and transportation costs, and those are fairly high in Northwest Arkansas as well, which means that people are living in more sprawled out developments, which means they have to drive a lot longer to reach different amenities of their jobs or schools or whatever it is, which then increases their transportation cost. So you have to consider both when you're looking at what a household does with their income, paying not just the mortgage and insurance and all of that stuff that goes with the house, but also paying for the upkeep of a car or cars and insurance and gas and so on and so forth. In terms of where we expect relief, we're not expecting any relief in terms of home prices anytime soon here. In Northwest Arkansas, you are seeing building permits increase, and the number of building permits are increasing, but that increase is largely driven by what's going on in Benton County. And as you can see, the Washington County number actually went down in the second half of 2020, but we're still not building to the level that we had back in 2006 when we overbuilt. In a certain sense, we're still very much underbuilding here in Northwest Arkansas. And I'll show you the proof for that in an upcoming slide here. This gives you an idea of building permit values, 260 or so thousand in Benton County, 270,000 in Washington County. New construction is obviously a lot more expensive. The lots that are available are a lot more expensive, and what's going on today with construction prices, lumber prices in particular, construction labor prices, those are also pushing home prices up in general. So, as you can see here, the number of home permits issued in Springdale went down again. Again, there are sort of few builders with large development projects. So, if they don't issue permits to build on those projects, you're not going to see a whole lot of projects in the city, and that's kind of why you generally saw that decrease in Washington County. Same story in Fayetteville, few builders with large developments, and if they're not building, there isn't a whole lot of building going on. Again, this gives you an idea of the price of the upcoming developments. This is obviously does not include land values. You're already looking at $250,000 permits, so these homes are largely, again, not going to be particularly affordable when we think about our different metrics. And again, since Tawnytown borders you guys on the west side, I thought I would include them. And again, here you can see very clearly where Tawnytown resolved its issues for development, rapid increase in development number of permits issued, but those subdivisions are largely being built out at this point, and so the number of permits has declined in Tawnytown as well. And even in Tawnytown, as the number of lots sort of decreased, you saw that they were starting to build sort of smaller homes even there. I mean, not small by any measure that we're thinking about in some of the bigger cities, but smaller compared to what was being built in Tawnytown earlier, which sort of pushed the average building permit value down. But that's, again, in the second half of 2020 with construction prices and construction issues, what they are, that permit value went back up. So, I've talked about sort of these issues for why construction prices are going up. Labor is short, lumber prices have gone up. Not something that we largely can do anything about here as a region, but before any of that happened, construction prices for new homes were always up, and that's in large part because there are fewer and fewer empty lots to build on. We're looking at about 168 lots in Springdale, and 500 or so lots in Fayetteville. Now, in the pipeline for Springdale, we're looking at maybe about 700 lots. About half of that is one subdivision in East Springdale. So there is stuff coming in the pipeline, but again, if you just look at the scale of where we had lots available back then to the number of lots we have available today, we just don't have enough land available that is platted, ready with infrastructure, so on and so forth, to build houses on, which then makes every remaining lot a lot more expensive to build on, which then shows up in the price of new homes being sold. Same story you see going around in the smaller cities in Washington County. And again, as I pointed out several times, to reassure you that we're not anywhere near the bad old days, in terms of overbuilding. This is what it looked like when we overbuilt. These are the number of houses sitting unoccupied. These are completed brand new construction sitting unoccupied. And this is where we were in 2006 when we had overbuilt in the market. And this is how many complete brand new homes are sitting unoccupied. This is where we are today. So, homes are very often just sold before they're even completed. And so that's the situation that we're in today. And again, this is just an annualized version of the same thing. You can see that absorption is, really high, and the complete but unoccupied inventory is a lot lower, which is the opposite of what you see going on previously. We'll talk a little bit about multifamily. Again, the vacancy rate is low across the region. You see a small increase in vacancy in both Benton and Rogers. That's because we were tracking brand new apartment complexes before they're even completely ready to be lived in. But again, across the board, in spite of how many sales are happening on the single family side, the vacancy rates at apartments remain low. In Springdale, it's about 2.1%. This chart for Springdale multifamily includes multifamily projects in Tawnytown, because there are too few in Tawnytown to report separately. They are included as a part of Springdale in our data collection system. And we're overall expecting in the next few years, not that every one of these is going to happen, but about 2,200 or so units to be added in the Springdale market. That's just based on what projects are currently permitted and what projects have been announced. That's about 30% of the existing supply. And then in downtown, we're looking at maybe 450 or so units to be added in the next few years. Currently, there are about 300 or so units with, again, very low vacancy rate there as well. And, again, like the single-family market, rents are going up. Single-family residential market rents are going up in the multifamily market as well. The average rent is about $741. It's up 24% over 5 years. In Springdale, the average rent is about $683, and the range is, somewhere like $514 for a studio apartment to $865 for a 4-bedroom apartment on average. So again, looking at, now that you've looked at multifamily and single family together in tandem, you can see that in spite of all the home buying, you didn't see an increase in vacancy rates in multifamily. So if people aren't leaving apartments to buy single family homes, how do we see this increase in single family home purchases and the decrease in vacancy rates at multifamily units? So the only other option left, I guess, is that people moved into Northwest Arkansas during the pandemic. We don't have good data on this. I don't think the new census numbers will have good data on this, because the census was carried out in April and May of last year. People didn't really start moving until the second half of last year. So we have some sort of information from U-Haul, for example, that says that Arkansas was ranked 11th in net in-migration of people. And I have to assume that a lot of those people came here from Northwest Arkansas. But again, we don't have hard numbers, and I don't know that we're going to get hard numbers in the new census numbers that will be released later this year. So we're probably just looking at something like next year to know, next year's release of census estimates to know how many people are here in Northwest Arkansas, how many people moved, and hopefully are not moving back away from Northwest Arkansas now that the pandemic's over. I'll quickly talk about commercial projects. In spite of everything happening with the pandemic, we still registered, about $190 million worth of projects here in Northwest Arkansas. 23 million of those projects are from Springdale, retail warehouse and projects, the hotel projects and warehouse projects accounted for most of those projects and permits in Springdale. And when we look at the commercial market again, we're seeing new retail development in downtown Springdale. Obviously, that is being absorbed as it's being developed. We're seeing a little bit of office development there, as well as people trying to buy into this live workspace development in there. But I think that has a lot of long-term potential in downtown Springdale in particular. The key component missing there is a lot of people living there. So now we have sort of the working component there. We have the retail side, a lot of bars and restaurants going in there. But you now need a lot more people living there, living in downtown to patronize those restaurants and those bars and those businesses in downtown Springdale. So I think that is the piece that is currently under development. As I've mentioned, apartments are being developed for downtown Springdale. And I think that will be what kickstarts that particular and makes that particular development whole. That's all the data I have to talk to you guys about. Obviously, I'm happy to entertain any and all questions that you have for me.
Yeah, if anybody has any questions, feel free to step up to the mic, or I can do my best Phil Donahue and bring you a microphone, whichever you like. May we get a copy of that information?
Yeah. Yes, so I think I sent the PDF to you by email just a little bit ago. So.
Yes, sir, I got it. Well, thank you so much for your time.
It's not a problem. Thank you.
You're welcome to stick around. We've got Dr. Cleveland and company up next. So, yeah, thank you again.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. For those of you that I don't know, I can't see some faces, see hats and masks. Kind of ready for that to be over. I'm Jared Cleveland. I'm the superintendent of Springdale Schools. I have Mr. Kelly Hayes, our deputy superintendent, here tonight. We have a good little opportunity to visit with you. Can y'all hit play for that? And, what I'm going to talk to you tonight about is our facility projects that we have going at Springdale Public Schools. And I know after talking to Dr. Compton a little bit earlier today, I live it every day, and so I think everyone knows, but maybe they don't. So this is an opportunity to visit a little bit tonight and show some plans that we have. And we'll talk a little bit about our current facility projects. If you haven't been around some of the schools, we'll go over our millage extension request a little bit and how we can fund that. And long-range planning, we'll talk about elementary zones just a little bit, and we'll close. So I have 80 plus slides, and I know that makes Patsy Christie go, "Oh no, 20 minutes, you're not going to get there." I think I can. I think I can.
Okay.
Our first little project is down by Northwest Health, and we call it our little treehouse. And what it is, it's going to be an opportunity for us to have food, clothing, and all kinds of opportunities for our kids and families to share. And so it's the Treehouse Pantry. It's the old Quonset hut looking thing that looks really rough. And Miss Patsy is really helping us shape that around, and it's going to look really good. And these are the plans. And just one little simple thing. We had a gentleman come to us earlier in the year, and he said, "I need to make a donation. I'd like to make a donation. What are you thinking about? What can we do?" The mayor actually helped put this together, and so all the credit goes really to the mayor for helping us get that. So I'm really appreciative of our mayor. How many of you have been to the Don Tyson School of Innovation recently to see the new phase? You're welcome to go anytime. I'd love to take you through it. I went through it yesterday with the kids, and it was as if they were so excited, like they were astronauts getting to show you their spaceship. They were so excited. These are just some images of our new Performing Arts Center. They're really beautiful. We also, for our athletes at Springdale High and Harbor High, have built new baseball and softball locker rooms. They were our last phase to complete our athletic programs at the two schools. So we built baseball and softball originally, and they were practice facilities. We added lights, upgraded both. Our last phase, I don't know why that picture looks that way, but it's not green and nasty, I promise. But that's at Springdale High. These are internal. We're almost finished with them. The kids aren't even using them yet. Springdale High is just a little ahead of Harbor because of the way we use the same tradesmen, and so they went from one to another. So Springdale High looks pretty good. I know we have a city councilman here that used to play football, and he practiced in the indoor there. Between the indoor and the new locker rooms will be batting cages, and so a lot of utilities are through there, so we're not able to concrete that. We're going to AstroTurf over the top and put some nice batting cages. It'll look good. If we ever need to dig into the utilities, we can get there. Oops. At Harbor High, these are the softball locker rooms and baseball locker rooms, very similar. You can see the Dr. Ronnie Bradshaw arch there as you're facing toward the track, looking to the west. So we built the locker rooms in between the current concession stand in that facility over toward the track. So they're multi-purpose locker rooms. There's just another view. And you can see we're just a hair behind from Springdale High. Many of you who've been to football games and baseball games there have been somewhat frustrated with the distance of your walk to the facility. So we've added additional parking. This would be on, if you're looking south, okay, toward the baseball fields, we have additional parking. I think there are about 70 spots. And when I went to a baseball game the other night, they were full. So I know I had some people say, hey, why didn't you do this a long time ago? Well, I don't know the answer to that. I should have said Dr. Compton used to be in charge, and he's why we didn't, but I did not. We've also added just had to help you, Dr. Compton.
Thank you.
Harbor Wrestling, Dance, and Cheer. It's a new facility. At Springdale High, we currently have a old facility that serves in this manner, but Harbor did not. And so we have some interior views. I keep hitting two, I think. Some interior views. We have a new wood floor. It takes about 10 days for the wood to acclimate. So we're in that process right now. They should be able to lay that wood floor this weekend. So it looks really nice. Told you I could go through them, Miss Christie. Interior view. Some of you have asked about the new elementary school at Taneytown. Our school board, I'm not sure what that is. Our school board has elected, we'll just bypass that, I'm not sure. No, the singer in the room is behind me, both of you. It's the Jim D. Rollins School of Innovation. Some of you may say, well, is it a little sister to the Don Tyson School of Innovation? The answer is no. We believe every one of our elementaries, middles, junior highs, and high schools are innovative in concept. Okay? Dr. Rollins, who's been our longtime superintendent, was very instrumental in developing this innovative mindset. So when he was notified he was going to be honored in this way, he said, well, Jared, is it a school of innovation? Absolutely. They all are. And so we have the tag of School of Innovation, and we're very proud of it, and we're hoping he is proud of it too. Some interior views. This is the floor plan. Of course, I'll provide these to Miss Christie, and she can, spread those out if you like. It's two-story, so we have our lower level and our upper level. Some interior views looks like this. You're walking into, when we developed these, we called it Taneytown Elementary, so no one would know it would be Jim Rollins prior to him being notified. You walk into a school-based health center on your left. We have a culinary arts program on the right, and then you enter the town square. The town square, you have learning stairs, and at the top, in the second floor, you can see that is your library media area. So we call them learning stairs. We're entering into the kindergarten hallway. The concept of the school is somewhat open, but we do have classrooms. So this would be an elementary classroom, typical classroom. And if I go too fast, stop me. I'd be happy to slow down a little. We have collaborative spaces all throughout the facility where classrooms can join together, 2 and 3 classrooms at a time, or we could have vertical alignment to where you have, 5th grade all the way down through kindergarten may be doing a similar science project, or have projects that are in construction trades, and you think, well, construction trades, that's at high school. Kids will be able to use in their maker spaces tools that they'll be using later on, like you might use, Brian, at your home when you're preparing something. So we call it the project lab. Now we'll enter into a classroom, 1st and 2nd grade. In many of our areas, we have glass walls that you can slide to open to make spaces bigger and more collaborative. And you can see the way we did the flooring. The state requires us to identify classroom spaces, so we were able to do that with our flooring, whether it be LVT, carpet, or polished concrete. Typical 3rd through 5th grade classroom. And then the library media center from the upstairs. You may say, well, where are the books? How do they look? Well, we have digital books today, but my wife is a library media specialist. She says to me all the time, books are our best friends. The ones you can touch, you can feel, you can turn the page. We'll have books, but we'll also have books in the classrooms. I know there are conversations across the state and across the country about bathrooms these days, okay? One of our thoughts, I was actually in a different state, I was in California actually, and saw a bathroom in an airport that had, the boys on one side, the girls on the right, and then common sink areas. Well, if you think about an elementary school in supervision, bathrooms are where a lot of problems happen, and it's hard to supervise. And mostly it's around when you're washing your hands. So we've pulled the bathroom sinks out almost into the hallway where they're accessible by all. Especially with the pandemic, we've learned cleanliness is important. So it's an opportunity for us to really improve our bathrooms. And then I think one of the last few slides here shows our Culinary Lab. It's an extension of the makerspace, and it gives students an opportunity to you can do math while you're cooking. You can do physics. You can do all kinds of projects using your hands. And we do believe that when you're using your hands, your mind is working because it's focused. It's part of the makerspace. Cafeteria is very important. The cafeteria will also be an area of collaborative spaces. But we also have the arts, which will be a huge component of our elementary school. Music, art, dance. So, okay. Now, I'll move forward. Do you have any questions on that? We good? Okay. All right.
We're talking about the districts. Is the new school renovation citywide, or is it going to have its own?
It is zoned. I do have the zones. Okay. Yes, but it is zoned. We are allowing, especially since it's going to open relatively small, we're allowing for people to request transfers in. We have some of those. I think 27 was the number I had the other day, which is not many. So if it was a totally choice school, it might not have any kids in it. So our idea is to zone it. Basically, in your mind, it's anything that's west of I-49 and south of 412 in the Tawny Town area. But I'll show you those zones in a little while. Okay. Years and years ago, when the facilities program at the state, partnership program, developed, we as building leaders and district leaders understood that in order to really supply good facilities for your districts, then you needed to be able to fully implement the state partnership program plan. And it's a labor-intensive process. Dr. Compton has done that at Bentonville. He did it here in Springdale, so he understands. It's a 10-year, how do we plan, what do we look for? And in Springdale over time, it's been very difficult because of the massive amounts of growth. I mean, you were building 2, 3, 4 schools sometimes in a year, or at least every 2 years. That has slowed somewhat, but it's still very important that we play the game and play it really, really well. My mind has always been focused on an opportunity to maximize state partnership funding through long-range planning. That is a critical piece. You can't just get to a point on your calendar and say, oh, we need a new elementary school. You should have applied for that 4 years ago. And then, okay, so we'll walk through that. We have some projects that are eligible for partnership funding now. We have Southwest Junior High, full opportunity at replacement, Central Junior High, full opportunity at replacement, Springdale High School for some additions, and George Elementary for a media center, which is the last elementary school without the new media center. We'll start with Southwest, and I'll go quickly. Southwest, it's a 54-year-old building, now 55, 103,000 square feet, and we have massive issues with electrical, plumbing, and so forth, okay, just because of age. So our expectation is to basically tear the building down except for the gym and rebuild a new building in the same location. And you say, well, Jared, why would you do that when you could build a brand new one, probably cheaper? We are building a brand new one. The expensive space basically is the gym in that area. That is very expensive to build. But the state wouldn't partner with us in a new facility. So in order to partner and get the state's money, a collective of about $35 million, we needed to play the game really well, and Southwest and Central Renovation came back around. So the idea, you can see the bird's eye view, Southwest Junior High with the football field and track, okay? That's the current footprint. The idea is to take that footprint and add new space and demolish the old school, except for the gym. Okay, so it'll be on the same footprint or same location, it just reimagined. Then we demolish the old facility, do parking, play field, and it pulls it away from the road. So I'll just try to go through. And that's what it might look like. Nothing in stone, but it's a lot better. It's got a new look. A lot of collaborative spaces there too. Central, it's now 50 years old. It actually qualified for quite a bit more square footage. Same process here, except it will be a phased project. You can't just, since it's such a small location, Mayor, and it's so close to Huntsville, our hope is to try to pull it away from Huntsville and face the front toward Gutensong. Are y'all all with me? Okay, so here's the existing area. We add a new admin first phase, who we're already approved for and funded. Then we add a new academic wing, very likely 2-story, potentially 3. We demolish a portion over closest to Huntsville. Add the new cafeteria. What will remain is the current cafeteria, very likely be turned into a media center, and the gyms, and I say gyms, there are 2 there actually. I know most of you have been in there. So that's what it would overall look like, you know, as far as the footprint. And I think you'll be pleased with the images. So this would be looking at the front from Gutensong. Just a thought. And then we incorporated learning stairs in there as well. How am I doing on time, Miss Patsy? Okay. Springdale High. Several of the facilities there, the buildings are over 70 years old. How many of you have heard or know, maybe you went to school in the Flat building, or they call it the Blatt building now? Okay, I've been in there. The classrooms are really small, okay? So our idea is to replace that. We actually qualify for additional square footage, about 85,000 square feet. Here's the current footprint of the school. The thought process is to, the Flat or Blatt building is at the end of the football field, and you see the auxiliary gym over to your right and down to your right. Years ago, it was called the girls' gym, then it's now the auxiliary gym. And the floor is beautiful, so our hope is to try to repurpose most of that floor. So here's an aerial view. The flat building, or black building as they call it today, would be replaced in a courtyard within Springdale High School. Right now we have to take lawnmowers through some doors into that courtyard to mow the lawn. That doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's what we do, okay? And then we would replace where the Blatt and the auxiliary gym used to be located, a new multi-purpose facility that would incorporate cheer, dance, and all that. There's also an old field house right behind the visitors' bleachers. Are y'all with me? We'll take that down too. And that's what Dr. Compton was talking to me earlier about is, oh, that thing needed to go like 50 years ago. So, and he's right. So some views. If you're at the track and you're looking at the facility, the PAC is on your right. The idea is have a 2 or 3 story courtyard building. So this is kind of a rendering. Core architecture, Dusty Graham is our architect for this project, a local guy, former Bulldog. He's really excited about it, and we are too. I know some of you are thinking, how are you going to pay for this? That's why Kelly's here. This is an interior view. This is the proposed multi-purpose facility. And it'll have classrooms in there too. Maybe even some hardened spaces, meaning like a safe room.
And just so y'all know where that building is located, it's my understanding it used to be the smoking area on the campus. Y'all know what that is?
The smoking area. And then finally we have our George Media Center, and George is elementary school is a really hard place to add anything. And so in order for funding, we had to place it somewhere, and we just threw it in on the end down by the school-based health center. But right now we're thinking about maybe bringing out the front as far as the administrative spaces and repurposing the library and the current administration spaces. Okay, I'm going to introduce Mr. Hayes. How are we going to fund this? It's a good time to be in Springdale because your taxes aren't going to go up. We're not going to ask you for that.
This slide just simply represents the Benton and Washington County school millage rates, and you can see that we are third from the bottom in terms of number of mills. Several school districts have increased their millage rates in recent years, and so we have not, and so they're passing us. You can see the average in these two counties is 43.46. Just so y'all know, the state average is around 38.5. So Benton and Washington County really supports their school districts, I can tell you that. So we're proud of this. We're proud that we're one of the lower, but we have wonderful facilities, so we are doing more with less, and that's a good thing. I always like to do this comparison. This is the 4 large school districts up here plus Little Rock, and the reason I threw Little Rock on here is because it's the only district the size of Springdale in the state. So what this represents, to be a school district in Arkansas, you have to have 25 what are called M&O mills, or maintenance and operation mills. But these are the mills that the districts have beyond that. You saw on the previous slide that we had a total of 40.5. So if you take off the 25 mills, this shows we have 15.5 mills outside the required 25. You can see in the comparison there, it varies, and up to Bentonville, which has 23.5 mills beyond the 25. So when you look at the amount of dollars each mill brings in, then you can see just by multiplying those two, the amount of dollars that each district is generating outside the required 25 M&O mills. And you can see Little Rock is just leaving us all in the dust because they have such a huge tax base. You can see a mill in Little Rock generates 3.9 million and ours generates 1.8. That is phenomenal to me, but yet we're the same size school. So, wow. So you look at our ADM and then you look at how much money outside of the required 25 M&O mills we generate on a per student basis. And you can see, once again, Fayetteville, for example, is generating 3 times what we generate on a per pupil basis because we've got a lot of kids compared to Fayetteville, but they're generating the same amount of dollars per mill that we do. So they have as big a tax base, but half the number of kids we have. So just some interesting numbers there. Everybody loves to say the streets are paved with gold in Springdale and in Northwest Arkansas, but you can see, comparatively speaking, we do not generate the funds the other districts do up here. We just don't. So, interesting. Okay, so here's what we're going to be asking our voters to approve on May the 18th. We have debt service mills. Those 15.5 mills that I just showed you are our debt service mills, and the voters approved those in 2011, and they were for a 30-year term, so they expire in 2041. The vote was close. We won by 44 votes. If y'all recall, it was about 4,004 and 4,044. I mean, well, you know what I mean. So anyway, we won it, but it was very close. Well, we're asking the voters if they would allow us to extend that debt out for 10 more years. Now, why are we going to do that? Well, we need money to do those projects that Dr. Cleveland just showed you. We estimate by doing this, first of all, we'll take advantage of lower interest rates. Our current interest rate, average interest rate's around 3.5 to 3.6 on all of our debt, and we anticipate that going down to about 2.25. So even if we extend our debt out for another 10 years, it won't cost us any more in interest. So I think that's a win-win. But what it'll allow us to do, it will allow us to borrow an additional $90 million, but it won't raise our yearly payment because of the interest rate, because of the interest drop, you see? So we'll still have about the same yearly payment, but we'll have $90 million we can use toward those projects. And you can see our annual debt payment, by the way, it's around $12 million. It would remain the same. There's a chance that it could go up if for some reason interest rates started tracking up pretty quickly. Interest rate risk, we're gonna all think good thoughts that that's not gonna happen. Once again, the election will be on May the 18th, and we will be issuing our bonds in 2 series if we're successful, one this summer and then another one about a year later, because we'll be doing those projects in phases. I'm going through this pretty quick because he said 20 minutes. How am I doing? Everybody with me? Okay. This just is a schedule of our existing debt, and you can see at the top, it's kind of hard to read, but all of our existing debts, bond issues are around 3.5, somewhere in that neighborhood, and our annual debt payment over on the far right is around $12 million. This would be the anticipated debts that we would retire all of our old debt, enter into new bonded debt at 2 or 2.5, so the average would be around 2.25. Once again, our payment would remain at $12 million. So, we would generate 90 million, and another reason, a major reason that we want to do that is because we want to take advantage of the state partnership dollars that go with it. We haven't been approved for all of those state partnership dollars yet, but we find out on May 1st how much additional monies. We're hoping that we could get as much as $35 million. That's a pretty good deal. If we put up 90, they'll put up 35. That sounds good to me. So that's our hope. We'll have to wait and see. So let's see. Okay, I think that the rest of that's pretty self-explanatory. But the only other thing is, just so y'all know, on the state partnership dollars, once we're approved for those, the clock starts ticking, and we have X amount of time. Usually it's 3 to 4 years to get the projects complete. If we do not, they take the money back from us. So this is time sensitive. We can only have one millage election a year, so if we're not successful in May on our request, then we can't ask again until 2022. That clock continues to tick, and our length of time available for construction shrinks. Okay. Oh, this is it, isn't it? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. This just shows what we've already been approved for. That middle column there, it's around, what, 7, 8 million? And then on May 1st, we'll find out if we get the remainder of this, which is the bulk of it, and you can see how it breaks down between SHS, Southwest, and Central Junior High. The total of it, as I've said, would be 35 million. I've been using the number 90 million. We actually have 94 here, but around 130 million is what we're projecting for all the projects we've mentioned. Oh, now let's talk about school zones. Any questions on that before I go to school zones? Okay, either I did really bad or y'all are asleep or something, so okay. These are our current elementary school zones, and Ms. Christie asked earlier if the Don Tyson School of Innovation was going to be a zone school or a district-wide school. These are our current zones. This does include, or does it? Is Lee on there still? Okay, yeah, Lee's right there in the very middle, I think. It's kind of hard to read that, but Lee's in the very middle. As y'all know, we're repurposing Lee Elementary for next school year, and those students will be going to George, Knapp, and who is it? Dr. Compton? Jones, Knapp, and yeah, the other one, whatever I said. George, thank you. There's 18 of them. It's kind of hard. Okay. On the west side, you can see we only have 2 schools on the west side of 49, and that is Young Elementary and Shaw Elementary, and you can see the massive zone for Shaw Elementary, okay? This is what we have done for Rollins Elementary. Rollins will be the part to the south of 412 and to the west of 49. You can see Young there in the green, and then the northern portion will be Shaw. So we basically took that zone that was 2 zones and redivided it into 3 zones. And then, like I said, we absorbed Lee on the east. So we will still have 18 elementaries. Let's see. Anything else I need to say about that? Or we did some other tweaking here and there to try to make the zones make sense, because we don't want anyone to have to drive by 3 elementaries to get to their elementary. That doesn't go over well. Okay, this just shows the changes that we made. So there were, quite a few changes to the zones. Anyway, okay. And these are new housings that we are anticipating, or we've heard about or been told. You can see all the, as we've already talked about, all of the housing developments to the west there in both the Rollins zone and the Shaw zone. So we think those will continue to grow. We're also seeing growth down there in Turnbow on the lower right, projected developments. Okay, there we go. Dr. Cleveland. Turn it back over to you.
I think that was fast, Miss Patsy, but I'm not sure you do. Okay. We did do a really rushed presentation for you tonight, but we believe, we're biased, that the school district, like the city, is the heartbeat of the community, because it's where your kids go, and the city provides those services for everyone. So we want to make sure that we are really understanding of the needs of the community, all of the community, and be very responsive. We believe this plan is a responsive plan. We are going to be asking our voters to consider to extend that millage. It makes a lot of sense. We believe our kids deserve these new facilities, and we think it would help our city grow overall. I know when I first moved here, and my wife and I drove around looking for houses. And in my mind, I don't care where I live as long as my family and she live with me. She can pick it, I don't care. But the schools are important to her. The schools are important to families that move in. Not just how well they do academically. Ours do pretty well. But it's also how they look. And what facilities will my kids get to participate with, whether they're athletes or arts or whatever interest a child has, Springdale wants to offer the best option for them. So this plan provides us, you all, the opportunity for our city to not only develop and grow, but grow in the right way. So we appreciate the time to come in tonight and speak with you. I feel like we maybe did a little too much, but there's a lot going on. And we just want to be responsive to you, because you are the leaders of this community, and we think it's important to have open communication. Invite you anytime to go through any of our facilities, and I'll be happy to walk you through. Have any questions, Jill? Yes, sir?
So on the new Central and Southwest,
Yes.
so when you do those, you're anticipating more student growth in those buildings also?
Well, we do. But how we qualified for the dollars, the partnership dollars, is by creating suitability, meaning we had to say we're going to take part of it away because it exceeded its life cycle. And 50 years is the life cycle. They're basically out of warranty. Even if we wanted to upgrade some of the facilities, the state wouldn't do that because the building's too old. That's why Lee had to be repurposed. We had some needs in Lee. We asked the state if they would help us with some of that, and the answer is no. It's just part of the rules. So it does qualify for pre-K. The classrooms are small, and it's still a good facility, and we can work on that. What?
Yeah, that's just what I was going to share. It became painfully obvious to us this year during the pandemic how small the classrooms are in Southwest Central. Social distancing.
Just wasn't
We
possible.
just could not do it. And so those classrooms, we need to make those classrooms bigger for our students so that they're equivalent to George and Lakeside.
Well, there's what they call a POR, Program of Requirements. The state won't allow you to build small classrooms anymore. It's 850 or above. The classrooms at those two junior highs, they're below 850, and certainly below 850 at Lee. Anyway, did that answer your question?
Yeah, because, you know, when you look at our region, we're growing like crazy. And infrastructure is always the big key. And it's a little bit different hearing that we don't have brand new elementary schools coming in at this time. But I know, do y'all have plans for growth for new buildings in 20 years
We do.
down the road?
Yes. We have some land also sporadically scattered across the district. We have some out off Elm Springs. Now, we did sell some property that was really too small for us to develop for a school. And, you know, you guys are going to get to look at requests to build homes and other things on those facilities, which will generate tax dollars for all of us. So, but yes, we do. We have some property on Don Tyson, slated for an elementary school. We have the property out toward Elm Springs that's slated potentially for a junior high. We have over on 56th Street by the ballpark. That could be a middle school. So we do have some space to do that. And over time, should we need those facilities, we could ask for those. Do you have something to say?
Well, and just so y'all know,
The phrase "Big Brother is watching" is really true. This state partnership funding piece, if the state doesn't determine that we need it, then they don't help us pay for it. But if we go ahead and do it on our own, then they penalize us for any new buildings we wish to build. So we kind of have to go along with them, and they look at the square footage we have per grade to determine if we have a need for another school. I know that I've been asked multiple times, when are you going to build a junior high out west? Because they have Harbor, they have Hellstrom, they have schools. They have to come to Central for junior high. Well, the state says you have enough square footage, you don't need another junior high. But they will allow us to build one on the same site and help us pay for it. So when y'all figure that out, come tell us, because we need some help on that.
Yes, ma'am. Yes. Yes, ma'am. The intention for Lee is to have an encompassing pre-K program there. Right now we have the ECC, which is located next to the old historic high school where the central administration is. Those pre-K children will be relocated to Lee as well. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
In regards to your transportation plan, getting kids to and from school, are y'all integrating multimodal transportation, biking and walking into that master plan, or working with the city for that?
Well, we
for
are.
their master
The
plan?
trails that the city is providing sure is helping alleviate some of the need for bus riding. You know, right now, it's really hard. If any of you would like to drive a school bus, we'll gladly take your application. Not many sign up for that, but the folks who do are great. But we're short bus drivers, again, Dr. Compton. So having the city really develop those trails and moms and dads trusting those trails for their safety and security, they're using them. But we do have walk zones. It's about, it was a mile years ago, but we're shrinking those somewhat.
Do you have statistics on how many students are walking and biking to school every year to track whether it's increasing or not?
Well, our ridership in our buses are decreasing. So I
They're getting
can't
there somehow.
tell you if it's walking or biking or if it's cars,
Car riders, yeah.
but something is happening. And really, we were able to decrease, I think, 8 routes last year. And this year, our ridership was way down because we had about 3,400 students who wanted to go a virtual route. So it was way down. Yes, ma'am.
First time y'all are looking at multi-story buildings,
Yes.
that helps the efficiency of the multi-story.
It,
That's something we talked about in here, is that state or is that because you all think it's much more efficient?
it's need. It's need for us, and it's using our dollars at the highest and best use. So kids are able, and so are staff, are able to go up and down, and that's the answer. It's a plus for everyone. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. No. We think they're beautiful, but we did site adapt for a long time. And quite honestly, Dr. Rollins was here when we began the Jim Rollins Elementary School at Tawnytown, and it looks nothing like the others. So our hope is to build spaces that are highly flexible, that as education develops, we won't be in a situation like we are in Lee, where the classrooms are tiny and they wouldn't qualify for additional dollars. So let's say one day one of our flexible schools needs additional walls. Well, we could do that with what we call Nano Walls. You bring in furniture, basically, where you can open and close these clear walls. And it really helps us visually with supervision, too, that you're able to see the schools. And kids are learning how to work together, too. Yes, sir.
Talking about Lee, as old as Lee is, you also have Jones, Westwood, and Elmdale,
That's
not
right.
too far behind it. Are you concerned about those buildings as well?
Well, we are. And they will be out of warranty, per se, as well. So our plans in the future, we don't really have a plan to repurpose those schools, but here's what we have learned. We've learned how to play the state game, which is create suitability, Dr. Compton. Just like we've done with Southwest and Central, our opportunities at Westwood, Jones, even George, and Elmdale do the same thing. The newest spaces keep, create a plan to build new space on the larger footprint, and basically demolish the old. Some people don't like getting rid of the old, but in order to keep new HVAC units, new plumbing, all of those things, it's important. And we figured out a kind of a way in to continue to receive state partnership. So we think that's our end game over time. But that's a great point.
And the lead footprint is very small. The campus was just too small to be able to do anything
Yeah.
else on it. But we have additional space in Jones, for example, we need to build more Westwood and not displace the students that are enjoying their program.
That's a great point. Those other spaces are larger spaces, footprints. Miss Patsy, please don't count this part against me in my 20 minutes.
You're good.
Okay,
We'll invite you back. You didn't go over too much.
all right. Anything else? Hey, thank you so much for the opportunity to get to come.
I do want to say that I went to Southwest the year it was open as a ninth grader. I want everybody to know that it was 55 years ago, but I did go the first year as it opened as. It was state of the art. It was a big deal back then, but that's a long time ago.
It was, but by the third year it was open, when I got there, we had buckets on the floor when it rained. The roof was open.
Well, I believe the staff in Southwest is ready.
Yeah, they probably are.
Thank you all so much. We'll get out of your way.
Thanks, Jared. Thanks, Kelly.
Well, thank you all for being here. Before I let you go, for any of you who have not yet followed us on social media, here's a QR code for our Insta, and then we've got one for our Twitter if you're interested. And then finally, we've got a listing of the upcoming meetings. We've got Planning Commission on May 4th, and then we just kind of get back into the normal swing of things with a single planning commission meeting and a single work session meeting every month from there on out. So thank you all for coming. We really appreciate it. And thank you to Dr. Cleveland and Mervyn and everybody for speaking. Have a good one, guys.
Thanks.